Good evening, everybody. This planning board will come to order this 9th day of April. The time is 7 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been posted at Borough Hall, filed with the Borough Clerk, and mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Two River Time. Roll call, please.
Mayor Portman,
Here.
Thomas Welsh, Christina Bonatakis. Here. Dan Mancuso.
Here.
Louis DeMento.
Here.
Barbara Boas, absent. Megan Massey, absent. Wilson Bibi.
Here.
Itzel Hernandez.
Here.
Fred Stone
Here.
and Brian Parnigan.
Here. Okay, before we get started, the very important thing, who would rather be across the street watching the New Jersey Symphony play Star Wars: The Force Awakens than be here? I have 2 tickets. You are welcome to them free of charge because I couldn't do anything with them today. And if you haven't seen the New Jersey Symphony do a Star Wars movie or Looney Tunes or Harry Potter, it is unbelievable because it is technically perfect. I have 2 orchestra seats on the aisle. If anyone wants them, they are yours. The show starts at 7:30. You are welcome to them. Come up and take them and go see the show. Because that's where I would rather be. So we have one administrative matter, which is the meetings of March 22nd. I'm not kidding. You can come up and take these and go anytime you want. Does anyone have a motion to approve the minutes of March 26th?
So moved.
Second,
And being all in favor.
Okay.
all in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any noes?
I was at.
You were here.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna continue our public hearing on the Red Bank Train Station redevelopment plan. This is your opportunity to ask questions or make comments. That's where we are. That's where we left off. If no one has any questions, I'll keep these tickets and go across the street myself. Questions or comments from anyone in the public about the plan? I'm gonna put these back over here. Come on up, Mary Ellen. You can sit right there if you want, or there. I don't care.
I wasn't sure if I was gonna get a second shot, but.
Just pull that mic real close, rock star close. Tell us who you are and your address again for the record.
Mary Ellen Mess, 95 Hudson Avenue. I felt last time I got lost in the weeds, so I'm gonna stick to my written comments, but I just wanted to start by saying that I don't oppose development at the train station, but I would like to see something that is in keeping with the character of the town and something that does not overwhelm our infrastructure and our traffic circulation. I'm also an advocate for affordable housing. This is something I've been interested in for a number of years. I've done a lot of research, and I think that a lot of people really don't understand what affordable housing means in the context of New Jersey's housing policy. And in my mind, it is a big problem because I do think it's exacerbating the housing crisis here in New Jersey by increasing real estate speculation and driving rents up across the board. And interestingly, this week, the mayor of Toms River was on the front page of the Asbury Park Press for 2 days, complaining about the number of homeless in Toms River. And there was also an article about Summit, New Jersey, which is one of the wealthiest towns in Essex County, and they also have a homeless problem. So I think the housing policy is actually making things worse, and now homelessness is at record heights in New Jersey. I think Red Bank's history is filled with unintended consequences. You know, lunch break, which started out as a local food pantry for families in the neighborhood that were having trouble making ends meet, now has created a situation where we are a magnet for the homeless. They come from all over, Massachusetts, the Carolinas, Pennsylvania. We also have a history of unfulfilled promises here. Has anybody seen the boat ramp lately or the skate park? And we also have a long history of really bad zoning decisions. And anybody who's driven past Roger Mumford's Great Wall on Hudson Avenue that bears witness to that. So the question here tonight is, does the BFJ, are those the correct letters, Susan?
That's
BFJ? I always get them mixed up. Redevelopment plan adhere to the master plan. So this redevelopment plan takes a vague wish list, most of which will never be implemented, and seeks to codify changes to the zoning around the train station. In so doing, it basically echoes the Denholz plan. And I have to ask, who does BFJ work for? I don't feel that they work for the taxpayers of Red Bank who pay their fees. I'm sorry, I'm not a good public speaker anymore. So, of most concern to me is the gratuitous inclusion of a potential change in the traffic pattern on the east side of the train station, which appears in the Denholz proposal. Right now, there are 6 entries and exits to the east side surface lots, and the BFJ plan identifies the potential to reduce that to 2, eliminating vehicle access at Oakland Street and reducing the width of entryways within yards of busy train crossings that frequently back up traffic throughout town. The master plan calls for a comprehensive study of existing and projected traffic and safety conditions throughout Red Bank. Why include this proposed blue nerf, which is kind of ridiculous, in the plan ahead of a comprehensive study? By doing so, BFJ seems to be tailoring its plan to meet the needs of Denholz properties. Absent a comprehensive circulation study, BFJ makes assumptions about parking requirements that are inadequate. Every train station from here to Rahway has surface parking for commuters, but the BFJ plan does not address the need for surface commuter parking in Red Bank. As a woman, I avoid garage parking in favor of surface parking for safety reasons when I am alone. The master plan map, figure 12, indicates that more than half of residential neighborhoods in Red Bank are a 20 to 30-minute walk to the train station. To state that those commuters who already live here are all going to walk, use bikes and scooters to catch a train or wait in line to enter a backed-up garage is clearly the work of people who have never had to jump out of a car to run down Chestnut Street to catch a train when the gates are down. I caught the 6:35 a.m. to Newark for many years, and I have never driven 7/10 of a car to the train station. Density calculations in the BFJ plan are manipulated to meet the master plan. If density is calculated based on buildable land area of 7.5 acres, the density proposed exceeds maximum proposed by the master plan. I refer to page 12. The BFJ plan also fails to maintain residential buffers as recommended on page 9 of the master plan, since the adjacent neighborhood density is less than 6 units per acre, figure 8 on the master plan. The recommended 15 feet setback on West Street on page 97 of the master plan is reduced to 5 feet on the redevelopment plan, page 12. The transit village designation requires a minimum of 3.5 stories and 15 units per acre. Building density is met by the current zoning in the train station overlay district. The the TOD, I forget what that is. Transit-oriented development concept assumes a reduction on the need for cars, but mass transit here is woefully inadequate. How many people here on the board or in this room have taken a bus to ShopRite or Trader Joe's, a doctor's appointment, a concert, a county park, to the beach, or to visit a friend, or to buy shoes or any other necessity in Monmouth County in the last 12 months? To expect that the residents of 320 luxury apartments are going to hop on a bus to Whole Foods is really unrealistic. What we really need is a light rail line from Keyport to Brielle with spurs to Highlands, Long Branch, and Asbury Park before we can truly be a transit village. In spite of BFJ claims to the contrary, the public forums were poorly attended If you discount the New Jersey and Denholz reps, the finance guys who were there promoting the pilot, council, zoning, planning board members, and borough employees, there were only a handful of borough residents at the August and December meetings, which were scheduled at very inconvenient times for the general public. And none of the residents there really looked too pleased with the presentations. Limits on height and density were paramount in everyone's mind, but the structure of the forums were such that BFJ can cherry pick how the public input is interpreted and presented. Take, for example, board number 1, where we had to put our stickers on what we approved of and what we didn't. It really didn't give attendees an opportunity to weigh in on a 6th-floor building. If one had been pictured, I guarantee it would have had a great many red dots. Although Mr. Mancuso has assured us that limits will be placed on the train station redevelopment, limits that I hope won't involve his dead body, I am asking that this body not approve the report without amendment. Why give blanket approval to a plan that opens wide a door to development that is just too big for our town's infrastructure and roads to handle? Now is the time to plan an alternate route before the train leaves the station. I have been to many zoning board meetings where the pressure to approve variances is enormous. This process, governed by New Jersey land use law and affordable housing policy, favors developers. Ironically, Red Bank, which has never employed exclusionary zoning and has always been a haven for the working class, is made less affordable by the so-called solution to the housing crisis. The standards contained within this redevelopment plan supersede any conflicting regulations in the Red Bank Planning and Development Regulations. This is a direct quote from the plan. I consider this entire redevelopment process, quite frankly, a scam, starting with a master plan survey that could have been completed multiple times by anyone on the planet. Every step is driven by previous actions, assumptions, and recommendations, and there doesn't seem to be any way to put the brakes on or to change course. These hearings, in which the legal counsel admonishes the public for seeking information from the planning department and lectures about the limits of the board's authority and options, seems to be really, truly a waste of everybody's time. And I thank you for your time this evening, but you are the stewards of your community. The decisions you make will decide what Red Bank is for the next 50 years. And I ask you to send BFJ back to amend this plan so that it maintains the character and the safety, character of Red Bank and the safety of Red Bank residents.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. And I didn't say this before and I should have, we have a 5-minute limit for comments. My apologies that I did not say that up front. If we get everyone who wants to speak and someone wants to come back up to finish or to amend their comment, they are welcome to, but initial comments are 5 minutes. Anyone else like to come up?
Hello, Drew Logan, 26 Allen Place. I am a renter here in Red Bank. This is probably the first time you guys will be hearing from a renter about this issue. Frankly, I'm getting pretty annoyed by, in my opinion, the asinine complaints by people that own homes in town and don't really know what it's like in today's rental market. I moved here last summer. I was a week away from the only option for me and my girlfriend being a $4,000 a month apartment. We got incredibly lucky and we're not paying that and we found a different place. But right now there's 40 rental vacancies in town. Only 16 of those are under $3,000 a month and only a handful of those are, even viable. There's one solution to that, it's supply. The town needs supply. Nobody my age, I just turned 30. None of my friends can afford to live here. My own sister can't afford to live here. I don't understand what the holdup is, especially with the sentiment around town. Seems like nobody wants young families to move here because that's really the only logical complaint. to be against apartment buildings. Like, if you, I think we all know what the buying market for houses in town looks like. It's frankly insane right now. I think I've resolved myself to the fact that I'm not gonna be able to buy a house here in the next couple of years, and that's fine. But for people that wanna live here and young couples that are looking to put roots down here and start families, where do you expect them to live if there's only 20 vacant apartments and they're all luxury apartments? I don't know why that's a boogeyman term for housing here. Every new apartment building is in the $2,500 to $4,000 range. But if you get a mortgage right now in town on an $800,000 house, you're paying $5,000 or $6,000 a month. So if our only option for young couples, young professionals is to rent an apartment for half of what we'd be paying for a mortgage, because we don't have the liquid cash to be putting down a down payment on those kinds of houses here. We need more apartments. And frankly, I would push for 800 instead of 400, but I know that's a very unpopular opinion. Maybe we could put 400 somewhere else in town. That'd be great. But I would really like to urge the planning board specifically and the council members on the planning board to think about who this will impact the most positively and the most negatively. A lot of the complaints I've been hearing is aesthetics. I want to look at a big building. There's apartment buildings around town that are 10, 12 stories here. How did those get approved? When were those approved? They've been here, I live right behind that giant block apartment building over by Molly Pitcher. I don't know how long that's been there, but I think a vibrant pedestrian area and apartment buildings to replace a decrepit parking lot and vacant lots and vacant buildings sounds like a great idea. And I frankly don't understand how there's any opposition to that. And that's it.
Thank you, Drew. Anyone from else? Sean, good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
Pick a side.
I just want to thank everyone
Just
here.
speak into the mic, please. I don't hear the recordings when I listen back to it, and it's really
Thank you, Missy.
difficult.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Right up. Just hold it. You can hold
Sit
it.
down, John.
I want to thank everyone
Let us
here.
know who you are and where you live.
John McMahon, my wife Mari's here with me as well.
Hi, Mara.
We've been lucky enough to live in Red Bank since 1993. And
We need your address too.
288 Spring Street.
Thank you.
in Red Bank. And I just want to say, I love this community. And this young man who just spoke, when my wife and I moved here, we already had 3 children. We couldn't afford a house either. And we rented the 2nd floor of a 2-family house. You know where, Dan, on Mechanic Street. And we lived there and had a 4th child. And luckily, the owner of the house on the 1st floor was a mortgage broker and wanted us out because I think we were making too much noise up there, and helped us. And we got a house, and it's hard. It's hard. It was hard then. It's always going to be hard. It's never going to be easy. I don't think we're against each other here. I think when I heard Ms. Mess speak, and by the way, just so you know, Ms. Mess has served this community for how many years, Dan, right? On the school board and everything. We're all part of this community. So we're not against each other. I think we're talking about scope here, right? We're talking about scope. We love this community. We live in this community, right? I served on the school board for 6 years, and we want this to work for all of us. So yes, do we want affordable housing for everyone? Of course, right? But you have to look around, right? Red Bank's being asked to do far more than all these other towns, right? You're not gonna have this meeting in Rumson, you're not gonna have it in Fairhaven, you're not gonna have it in Little Silver. We're being asked to do far more than all of the surrounding community, and we embrace that, because we're that community, aren't we? but let's keep the scope in mind. Are we looking to do too much? Are we not looking to the future and seeing to ourselves right now? Yes, believe me, I rode the train to Newark for 27 years. Now the ridership's down. Is that gonna change? I don't know. But don't we wanna keep that option open, right? Don't we wanna keep open more parking for commuters if we need it? I agree with Mary Ellen. I would love it if the buses were our main route. You know, my dad took the bus up to the train station for many years. People don't do that anymore. So keep the scope in mind. I think we look around, and one of the reasons why a lot of people are concerned is that we see too much density. You know, not enough planning around things, not enough setbacks, not enough, you know, pedestrian, easement, right? So that's what we want. You know, I really think we want as a town to not be against each other. I don't feel that we are, but to have scope in what we're doing. So it seems too dense to me. When I look at the plan, you know, I'm familiar with the area. Very happy that St. Anthony's didn't sell their parking lot, you know, and it keeps a little more open space there. But yeah, let's be careful, right? And again, developers are entitled to make their money, there's no doubt about it. But let's care about ourselves. Let's care about ourselves. They can, you know, make their money, but let's care about ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? No.
Everyone, Alton Hill 64 Clement Street. I'd just like to remind people here, and especially the chair, that this is not a star chamber. This is not a place for individuals to come and make comments about other people in the town. This is a core to what you're a board that is here to take comments and questions about the plan which is before us today. And you know, I am very good as well at going around accusing people, even in this room, of making, I made a note of this, what they said, making asinine comments. That is not what we should be here doing. So I want to move on though to the business in hand, and in particular, the amount of consultation. Consultation has been fairly typical of what we expect in this town now. And I'm going to go back to the master plan. The master plan, I think, has already been described as being inadequate. But I'll remind you, the master plan, the input I had was 180 characters. If you remember the questionnaire, 180 characters. At the time, that was the number of characters you were allowed to post in, I know a lot of people's here favourite in Twitter. And besides, we don't even know what happened to them. And it's already been described as well that a lot of it was just done by stickers on a piece of paper. And so we have it with this redevelopment as well. 2 meetings which have already been described as inadequate. A really rocky road, or really should say an empty road of consultation, when even Miss Ebanks didn't know what the hell was happening in the next few weeks. You didn't. And people here will say. So it's tonight. And now we're going to be talking about a plan similar once again to the master plan, which, as you, Mr. Mancuso, once said when we were at the meeting to introduce the or to take on the master plan, said this is not This is not a tick the box exercise. This is not a roadmap for this town. This is just a thing to actually satisfy the people back up at the state. That is what you said. And so I would urge people once again to actually put this back on the table. Ask your consultant to go back and produce a plan that's acceptable to the community. And, you know, we are not NIMBYs. There are people here who call me a NIMBY. We are not NIMBYs. We are not here saying, no, we don't want progress. No, it's all or nothing. We're not saying that. You know, there are people here, there are people even in this room with years of experience of town planning and working in housing and working on safe roads. Maybe not in Red Bank, but all you're doing is ignoring them. I expect this evening, I'm not going to stay to the end because you'll probably just rubber stamp it, but I expect this evening that you will pass this. But I would urge you again to put this plan back, ignore the timetable that's been set by NJT, ignore the timetable that's been set by Denholz, because they seem to have a lot of input on this. Get back, consult the people who live in the town. This is a 2 square mile town. It's a town that accepts, we know we have to have affordable housing. We know that you know, almost every aspect of that, but it's just what the community can stand. And you know, this here, it's really hilarious. 800 apartments. Yeah, you know, you have 1,000 apartments. It's going to make no difference to rentals in this place. So please put it on the table, refer it back. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public have any comments or questions? Bill, come on up. Name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is William Poku, 90 Bank Street, and I'm speaking officially as the president of the Greater Red Bank NAACP. The first major question that I have, I don't know whether Ms. Favati is here today. Is she here?
Yes, she's right behind you.
Right. I'd like to know, first question, did you engage the NAACP at all in your preparations?
We as the board?
Excuse me?
You mean we as the board?
No, Ms. Favati.
Susan, you want to come up and sit over here? You sit on that side. Mike, wherever the microphone takes you. Last chance for anyone to go see Star Wars across the street. It starts in 1 minute.
I don't think you want to miss the NAACP.
We've known each other a long time. It's had nothing to do with you.
In this process, this redevelopment plan process, we did not engage specifically with the NAACP or any other advocacy organization. We engaged with the public as a whole as part of the public workshops in the summer and the fall, as well as tonight, 2 weeks ago.
All right, so my follow-up question is that the last time that we engaged, and also during the time that you presented the master plan, you were basically told that there is an existential problem of displacement of African Americans from this basic oasis amidst several wealthy New Jersey wealthy communities like Rumson, Goldsmith. And your response to that was that this is happening everywhere and there's nothing that can be done about it. Is that a correct statement or a fair statement?
No, what I said 2 weeks ago was that it is a regional issue and we are seeing it in many communities throughout the tri-state area. And it is a larger problem and issue than one site and one development can address. So I'm not saying that it cannot be solved, but that there will be other ways to solve it. This singular site and this potential redevelopment really cannot, on its own, affect problem displacement here in Red Bank or the region.
So then, a comment that I make then is that if I went to a midwife and I said I wanted a baby delivered, and the baby was breached, okay, legs coming first, and the midwife said, well, that's something that we cannot handle in this area and whatever, but if you like, we can continue and pull this baby out legs first. I don't think I would go with that. So I see the fact that the plans that we have right now do not address the issues that Ms. Mess is talking about. She sees a whole bunch of homeless people in Red Bank, and they're not Black people. There are all races of people. And part of the reason that they're homeless is that they can't afford all these exorbitant luxury housing that we're putting up. There is no shortage of luxury housing in Red Bank. There isn't. There's globs and globs and globs of it. But there is a shortage of affordable housing. And the whole situation gets a little bit more exacerbated by the speculation that goes on. There are developers that are willing to pay $1 million for a matchbox, collect a few of them, and then create high-density luxury units. And what happens then is that the rest of the state looks at Red Bank like we are wealthy. We're not an output district. So how does that affect us? We get cuts in our school funding. And then the burden of taxation shifts now to the low-income people that have been paying taxes and sustaining this environment for many, many years. Dan, you and I have lived in this area for a very, very long time. We're good friends. I remember when you were at Egghead and you introduced me to the Dana Drive and all that. You've forgotten more than some people know about technology today. You're a good friend. And Mr. Portman, you're a good friend too. I mean, you have a very, very patient, listening attitude. And I think that's a great credit to this community. The unfortunate thing is that your attorney tells you not to engage with the NAACP because its president sued the town. But why would the president of the NAACP sue the town? It's because you don't want to talk. Okay? Mr. Hill says you've been lecturing. Okay, you made your presentation, you gave a great deal of information and all that stuff, but it does not fit this community. This community needs more. Now you go into the municipal land use laws, you'll find out that there's great leeway in you crafting all kinds of mechanisms to meet your affirmative obligation. Your obligation is affirmative. Now, I understand that Mount Laurel is very, very famous. It's being adopted all over the country. It's not just limited to New Jersey. It's very, very famous, but it's infamous in New Jersey because we got a cadre of wealthy communities around here that have been fighting this thing for the past 4 decades. Red Bank started off as a very, very affordable place where Middletown, Aberdeen, and some other places were sending us their original contribution, ARCAs, which has now been banned.
Another minute, Bill.
Yes, just ring a bell when I get out of here.
The last thing I'm gonna do is bring a bell in here.
So,
And I'll do this.
there you go. So, Mary Ellen and Alan Hill and others that are gonna be speaking are pleading for you to amend, look at this thing, you know, a little bit better. Father Locke of Trinity has agreed to allow a public forum where it will not be you presenting to us, but you listening to our needs and how we can kind of craft something that eventually will sustain this community. So I gave you a paper the last time that there's a lawsuit asking for you to come to the court to talk because we are not able to talk outside of court. That lawsuit will go forward. But with Mr. Portman being here, he basically adulterates this community, which means that if we have to go for it, the planning board is also gonna have to join the lawsuit. Unless we can back up and talk more about how we can craft a better plan to sustain this community. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Bill.
Building settled 72 Bay Street. I'm just concerned about the apartment building being built, period. It seems like 800 apartments is a lot. Red Bank is very overcrowded. There's already no parking spaces for people to go downtown, or I had to park around the corner, drop my mother off at the door just to find a park space just to come here.
That's true.
Correct.
And I understand what the young man is saying about, being able to afford an apartment, and we all started off that way. But I just don't see this making any sense of building 800 apartments, in that area.
It's 400,
Oh, 400?
yes,
Maximum.
right,
So 400.
right. Drew wants 800. He'd like 800, but the plan, the zone here is no more than 400.
I think 400 is a lot. Everybody is saying maybe revisit, maybe come up with another plan, but I think it should be scrapped altogether. I just don't think it makes sense. Red Bank is a nice town. It's not a city. And I think you guys are looking at it as a city, and it's not. People want to be able to, if you want to build something, build single family homes for people. When you first started out, but when people want to build the foundation here, and once they start having their family, you want a porch, a backyard, or, things like that to do. 400 apartments, I think, is just in excess. And I just think that it should not be done, period. So I just hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Freddie Boynton, P.O. Box 2074. I lived here ever since 1969. My mother and father brought us up from Florida. I've been living in Red Bank practically all my life. Grandkids, nieces and nephews live here right now. I think if y'all want to plan a build and whatnot, it's ridiculous for all of this. We can't get in and out of driveways. Young lady couldn't even get out of her driveway on Bank Street the other day. So many cars on the side, she had to fight. That's a narrow street. She had to fight to get out of her driveway. So these units that y'all want to build, they're not gonna have one vehicle. They're not gonna have one vehicle. They're gonna have 2 or 3 vehicles. So where they gonna park? They're not gonna be parking in the unit or underground. Ain't gonna be no room. They're gonna park on the streets. You done had so many accidents here in Red Bank lately because of overcrowded. People's coming up and down the street and they done got hit by cars. It takes you almost an hour now to get from here to Newman Springs Road to the Parkway at a certain time. Coming up Dr. Parker Boulevard, you forget it. Traffic is backed all the way up. And another thing, y'all fighting so hard for this unit to be built. You go buy a car from a car dealer. Young man sell you a car. When he sell you that car, gets a bonus, don't he? The seller you that car gets a bonus. So we fighting so hard for these apartments. Is people getting a bonus for this? To fight for hard for this apartment? And some of you don't even live in the town. Once you get paid, you going out of town. You're gonna have to come back here till Monday morning to do work here. Then you're going again. We got to deal with this. I don't think this is the right move. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Anyone else? Suzanne?
Yeah, it's going 25 Cedar Street. I am not speaking for the board that I am part of or anything. You know, it's interesting, the lady who just spoke. She said, we're not a city. You know, I pretty much come to as many council meetings as possible. I can't tell you how many times people say, it's a city. I can do a little video, it's a city, it's a city, it's a city. Back when I first moved here about 2000, I remember, Councilman Dupont, we call us a cool little town. That's what I hope we don't lose our vibe of being a cool little town. This town is not like any other place. It's amazing. I came from Brick, which is strip mall, strip mall, strip mall, brick town. And it's great that you can walk down down the street and go to Starbucks. You can walk down the street and see a symphony. I mean, something so cool like this in the concerts in here. By losing the vibe, it is gonna hurt. I can't tell you how many people have moved out. But ironically, there's no consequences. People want to be here so badly, even though the taxes have gone up ridiculous amount, people still want to come here. So I definitely don't deny this is a hard balance, right? We want people to come, we want it to be affordable. Homeowners don't want to lose value in their house, but we don't want to lose the vibe. I think 400 seems enough, not enough, I mean, not too much, because you're looking at it, and I know what you're saying, you have to always speak about the issue on the table, but you gotta look at it as a whole for this was a 2.7 square mile town. That's getting built. When the happened down the street here got built, there's some proposal of apartments by coffee crowds getting built. Like there's so many little things are getting built. In totality, I can't even imagine driving on the street at 4:30. Even today, was it T&M looked like it's doing a traffic study at the intersection of Dr. James and Bridge. About 2-3 weeks ago, somebody got hit. And the density and the traffic and like enforcement, that's a whole other problem. My point is, how much can we handle? This thing is huge to the point, everyone's gonna have at least one car, if not two. How much are we gonna have in this town to lose our cool little town status? And we just become a city that apparently a lot of people already are calling us a city. We're not Hoboken. We want to be Hoboken, we live in Hoboken. We're Red Bank. Let's not lose this cool little town vibe that we have here.
Thank you. I think Red Bank's expensive. Go try and live in Hoboken.
No, I'm here.
Mr. Anderson?
Good evening, John Anderson. I'm the chairman of Red Bank River Center located in English Plaza in town. I don't want my prior questioning to be misunderstood as a lack of support for the plan as a whole. River Center is generally very supportive of the plan. I think it's an exciting opportunity. The housing component in particular is, we think, quite laudable. Not only does it resolve some problems around affordable housing, it's a very challenging situation that you all have to deal with, but hopefully it will bring more people to town that will patronize our constituents, shop at their shops, dine in their restaurants. We have one and only one concern, and that surrounds the intensity of the commercial component of the project. Your ordinance, as presently drafted, if it's adopted, allows 17 different uses. About 14 of those, we have no problem with, and I don't even necessarily suggest there should be any real cap on them. The three that are kind of critical to us that we like to take a hard look at would be retail, restaurant, and office. We represent a bunch of businesses in a special improvement district that's been going strong for the last 30 years, River Center since the 90s. These people work hard and they put in a lot of effort and they want their businesses to be a success. What we were able to learn, and I want to thank Ms. Vallada for her email clarifying how much commercial could go in if the floor area ratio for non-residential is abided. And it's about 66,000 square feet of commercial. You know, I just don't want to see that all get dedicated to retail, restaurant, and office. I don't think you all want to see that either, because I've heard people express a desire and a hope and an aspiration that there be schooling at preschools or daycare, doctor's office or walk-in clinics. None of those things are problematic from our standpoint. I think they're good for the town and they're not unduly competitive with our district. They're probably synergistic with our district. We have a particular sensitivity to the retail, restaurant, and office. It's not to say that there shouldn't be any of that there. I'm not suggesting they should be non-permitted uses. They should absolutely be permitted. Just like you to take a look at maybe creating a lower cap on those particular things so that you can get some of the other types of uses that you envision in this area. And it doesn't all become like high-end retail or restaurant, which I don't think is what you want, and which I think would be not synergistic with our district. We want something that is a little bit more harmonious. I think the way that you get that would be to look at the floor area ratio for the non-residential uses and think about possibly amending the plan to have just an upper limitation on a couple of these uses where you have, you know, Monmouth Street, Broad Street, Wallace, White, Front, the Bridge Avenue corridor, you have your Shrewsbury Avenue corridor. Shrewsbury Avenue is not part of our district, but they'll be impacted by it as well. And so I would just urge you to have a little bit of a sensitivity to those types of uses where we have quite a bit of that in town already, and just put a reasonable limitation on those things.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Mr. Herman? Oh.
Thank you. Hi, Chris Hannigan, 66 Oakland Street. My comments really focus, or actually I have a couple questions. Focus primarily on automobiles, cars in particular. One of the things that where I live, there's clearly some parking issues. Every time there's a Count Basie thing, every time there's a thing at the Armory, that parking lot is completely full, especially when that happens at the same time. So I was wondering, one of my first questions, has there been any, are there any ways to actually make it more desirable for people to have one or no cars for these units to try and mitigate the parking? You know, the idea of having, you know, one bedroom gets one space, two bedroom gets two spaces. You know, is it possible, since it's a really dense area in town, in a problematic traffic area as well, that we could put in place or look at or amend to this plan?
Keep in mind, we don't have an actual site plan yet.
No, I understand.
And for everybody to know, this is us sending our recommendation or not to the council about the redevelopment plan. We don't have the site plan from the developer yet. There'll be a whole nother set of meetings for that to talk very specifically about the site itself and their plans to build. But go ahead, Susan.
There are ways which would get more specific in the site plan phase. So, you know, presumably the owner of this building would dedicate spaces, assign them to their residents. The planning board could talk as per site plan about whether those spaces are rented separately or together with the apartment unit. There's sort of pros and cons to both, but if you do have separate, you know, and it's additional fee if you park, then that's a disincentive to have a lot of cars, obviously. For this plan, it's minimums and maximums. So the minimums are based on the bedrooms. So a one bedroom unit has fewer required, two bedroom, three bedroom goes up. There's also an overall maximum, which is a little bit unusual. You don't currently have that in your zoning code. So that's something we wanted to get in there, an overall maximum of surface parking, whether it's in the garage or whether it's on the internal streets. So that there is some kind of upper limit. to the number of spaces that could conceivably go on this overall site. But a lot of those details on specifically how many spaces each unit would get, how you might incentivize or disincentivize parking would be addressed at the site plan stage.
So then I have my comment about that is, basically what's happened to date is we've received a plan from a developer that we're building a plan around. Because we do that, they'll build it, right? That's kind of, I've been here for a while as well and seen that happen a couple of times within this town. So, I just ask you to keep that in consideration and like number of people, what's been said here that let's build something that fits the town well, and it actually does what it needs to do for us and for future people living affordable housing. All number of the comments that have already been said, I'm not gonna repeat them, but I understand that as well. My other thing is around traffic. I mean, often my driveway gets parked in front. It's like people are just everywhere and, West Street and those turns, the bus orientation that I know these are all, it's not necessarily going to be like that. But I think the bus coming around on West Street, around Juanitos and parking there's a lot to think about that. I think traffic study is a big part of this. And we're not looking at it. We're not considering it.
Or not because we don't have a plan yet.
I know.
But actually, I'll just point out that one of the requirements of the proposed plan is that traffic and circulation study actually be completed prior to submission of site plan. That the components of that study are agreed upon with the borough, so you know exactly what's being studied, you know the parameters, all of that happens before they ever submit site plan application.
Although I will remind everyone that never in all my years of being here have I ever seen a traffic plan submitted by a developer that didn't support the development. So don't think that's gonna happen because it's not.
Yeah, I know, that's really.
And the other part of this is New Jersey Transit will be incredibly concerned about the buses and how they route. So that is something that's gonna get weighed in on big time by them because that's their business. But don't expect a traffic plan to ever make you happy.
Exactly my point. So I think the idea of minimizing this to some degree and ensuring that it fits with the town is something that will mitigate that traffic issue.
Thank you, Chris. Are you related to Donna?
Who?
Donna Halligan?
It's Hannigan.
Hannigan, okay, you're right. And I wrote Hannigan down here. I still got it wrong. Sorry about that. Mr. Herman, run while you can.
How much of the show is left?
Your 5 minutes are left for sure.
Good evening. My name is Jay Herman. I live at 11 Vista Place. I've lived in Red Bank for 30 years, I'm happy to say. I've been investing in commercial property in Red Bank for about 35 years. I love it here. I get my passport checked when I leave town. And for starters, I want to applaud the planning board and the mayor and council for getting this plan as far as it's gotten to date. I think that all of you have done a really good job at something that was difficult. Next, I'd like to say that I support virtually everything that John Anderson said about the commercial component. I do have concerns. I think that what you're doing with this plan, assuming you were to approve it and the mayor and council were to approve it, is you are substantially benefiting an area that really needs the benefit. So I think that what you're proposing for the train station area will make a wonderful little neighborhood there. I also think that creating 400 new units in town is terrific. Everyone, whether they're for the project or not, I think acknowledges that there's a shortage of housing and affordable housing. So I think all that's good. But I think you have another opportunity tonight, and that is to help a couple of commercial areas that need help I'm talking about the immediate commercial area at the train station. And I'm talking about Shrewsbury Avenue. I don't own any commercial property in either of those neighborhoods, but owning property there is difficult. Finding good tenants who can pay the rent and whatnot is difficult. The 400 units, if you approve them, will help those neighborhoods tremendously because you will be creating permanent customers. But to the extent that you also develop new commercial space that's brand new, state of the art, terrific buildings, then Holtz will only build it well, is going to prevent you from helping those neighborhoods in need of them. I'm talking about the commercial neighborhoods nearby. If you didn't build very much commercial there, then those neighborhoods would benefit. The stores in closest proximity to the train station would change overnight. They would be much better looking. People would invest in their properties. The same thing on Shrewsbury Avenue. And I think you have an opportunity. You're proposing to help one neighborhood really well, and I support it. You have an opportunity to help several neighborhoods, and it wouldn't take much, but as John Anderson suggested, limit the amount of commercial space, particularly in retail, office, and restaurant. Those are the areas that would compete most with those other neighborhoods, even with Broad Street. As John said, most of the uses that are listed are terrific to the extent you have a museum, a daycare center, an athletic facility of some sort. Those would be great. Those are not competitive with the other commercial neighborhoods in town, but more restaurants, more retail, more office would be competitive. So I would urge in your recommendation to Mayor and Council that you recommend that there be a cap far below what the planner is suggesting you might allow for commercial. So again, to summarize my thoughts, it's hard for me to be this brief, having gone to law school, but I support your this proposal. I just hope that you will consider those thoughts on limiting the commercial uses. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else in the public have any comments or questions regarding this? Bill, raising your hand. You're fine, sir. You can come.
Steve Ansell, 39 Branch Avenue. So I really had a sort of a general question, which, you know, I'm tempted to sort of get an answer by, you know, trawling through all the articles that I found on Google and various other parts of the internet, you know, the master plan and the other plan, which was created. I'm actually just trying to understand who is actually driving this project in terms of who has, you know, which authority or which group has decided that this is a great idea for the town. I mean, obviously there's a push from New Jersey Transit to build, you know, a series of transit villages throughout New Jersey, and there's probably, you know, a dozen or more of them along the tracks. You know, and I used to go into the town for 20 years, and I used to see them going up all the way along the tracks. As far as I understand, part of their core reason for doing that is to increase ridership, which is fair enough. You know, they're a going concern. They want to make sure they get as many people on their trains as possible. One of the things I've also read, and I think it was in a, you know, this was a study that was done or sort of outlined in Red Bank Green last week, was that ridership figures are dramatically down since COVID. And nobody really knows whether or not those people are going to come back, whether or not building a huge transit village is actually going to make a huge amount of difference in terms of getting extra people on the train. So I guess one of my other, you know, my core question is, are we basically just going along with a plan that has been floated by New Jersey Transit simply because it's their land and quite frankly they can do whatever they want with it, and sticking 400 units on it and prospectively increasing their ridership makes sense, or as a town, as a council, as a planning board, do we think it's a great idea because we need more housing? We need more units. We think creating a nice little, supposedly walkable area is a great idea. I'm just trying to get a sense of what are the key drivers for this development? Because, you know, personally, you know, I agree with a bunch of the other people that have spoken tonight. In terms of just the size and the scale of it, I think is probably too big. I don't disagree that we could probably do something in that area to make it, you know, certainly prettier than it currently is. But in terms of the type of housing, the type of units and the number of them, you know, could it be, as I think I said in the last time I was here, could it be, you know, a different type of development? Some large, you know, or large-ish, apartment buildings, some smaller single-family homes like the lady mentioned earlier. Just my sense is that it is such a huge development, and I'm not really sure what's driving it, because I would imagine if you were to, you know, have a referendum on this, I would bet a pound to a penny that probably most people in the town would say it's actually too big and we don't support it. So that was just the question. I'm not sure who is driving.
To answer your primary question, New Jersey Transit owns a lot of the land.
Yeah,
They chose a developer
okay,
who I'm assuming is working on their site plan to submit
yeah,
to develop the property.
right,
So it's a combination, I'd suggest, of those two, with New Jersey Transit being the primary driver of the development, because not much could be done on this area without New Jersey Transit's blessing or desire to have it developed, as they have clearly done in almost every town north of here. So that's my answer to your primary question.
okay. So I guess my,
I mean, ultimately, the borough is in the driver's seat here. Jersey Transit can't build whatever they want on the site. They need planning board approval, whoever proposes something on the site, the borough council to adopt this redevelopment plan, if that's what they choose to do, and then the site plan ultimately is the planning board. So the borough does have the power here. As I said 2 weeks ago, nothing in this redevelopment plan compels the borough to adopt this plan. Nothing compels them to reach a developer agreement with any developer. It's, you know, it's a plan, that's all it is. So the borough does have control, the borough is in the driver's seat. And it is something that the borough's plans for decades has supported in theory, you know, the idea of density around the train station. It's not a new idea, it's been in the plans since at least the mid-90s, so quite a while now. This is just happens to be a moment in time when, you know, New Jersey Transit is interested in this. There's a developer who also owns property, sort of a confluence of factors, and that's why we're here at this moment. But ultimately, the borough does have control over what happens to the site.
that's great. I'm glad you said that, because you actually preempted my second question, which was, does the council have the power, which it sounds like they do, the ability to either veto the plan or to substantially change it if, for what, you know, pluck this straight out of the Constitution, the will of the people have the ability or the desire for it to be something different. So it sounds
And that's
like,
a yes.
it sounds like you do. Okay. And I guess finally, the last thing, I'll be quick because I'll probably use my 5 minutes up. What would it take for the board or the council to reconsider the plan or the outline plan that's been put forward?
I don't have an answer to that question. It really is probably how everyone on the board, and then if this board acts, the council feels about the general scope of the project, and I don't think we're there yet.
No. Not sure that last bit made a lot of sense.
I'm not a politician, but I
No,
get it.
I know you're not, I know. I'm just trying to get a sense of, you know, I think what it is, there's a lot of people in the town that sort of feel a bit helpless and they feel that they're a bit voiceless. And I think they feel that they don't have much of a say. And I think, they feel that they can come to these meetings and they can voice their opinions, but I think a lot of people feel that they're brushed aside, but I don't think they feel they really have a voice which can really sway anything. I think they feel that they can talk to the blue in the face, but at the end of the day, decisions have been made or decisions are going to be made, and they don't have a mechanism to really make any difference. That may or may not be true, but personally, I've spoken to a lot of people in the town, and a lot of them feel that way. So, I just wanted to make that point so you guys sort of understood the way a lot of the people that, that live here, pay the taxes here, and our long-term residents here sort of feel about it,
I totally get it. And the reason, and we, as our attorney pointed out at the last meeting, we don't even have to have these hearings legally. But we want to have them so that the public can at least tell us what they think. And I hope everyone comes back if this is approved by the council, and if there's a plan submitted later this year. And if you don't like it or you do like it, so thumbs up for Drew for being the only person who wants 800 units. I appreciate
There's still going to be over $4,000 each, apart from the sort of the handful of affordable units. So
yeah, the market stinks. And I'm involved in real estate, and I think the market is out of control. And when houses were selling for 200,000, when previously someone might have been alive when they were selling for 50, I'm sure they felt the same way. And as I said before, if your long lost aunt left you an acre of land in the middle of Red Bank when she passed away, and all of a sudden you're sitting on this, my guess is no one would build a park on it. You'd all want to maximize your acre's value, as a developer does, or in New Jersey Transit's case, wanting what they want out of the land, which is units and people to take the train. No doubt about it, which is difficult. But it's important to me and to everybody else that the public at least have an opportunity to have their say. I don't believe a decision has been made. Certainly not about the development itself, having not seen a plan. But I really appreciate everyone being here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather be across the street watching the symphony, but
it's interesting you say there isn't a plan, and I understand the fact there isn't.
there's a general plan.
But there's a general plan.
Yes,
And
there
the
is.
general plan is it's 400 units. So whether it's 400 units that's that shape or 400 units that's that shape, it's still 400 units, and it's going to be huge, and it's going to be it's going to be a great big block of concrete in the Red Bank. So whatever it ultimately winds up looking like, we know it's going to be a massive development.
And I think if New Jersey Transit was open to 10 stories, the developer would build 10 stories. But I think they realize that that's not anything that anyone here is looking for.
I guess, and again, maybe you can help me out with this, but once the thing is built, which I dare say it's going to be, in terms of and I know we can't talk about the finances, but in terms of revenue, in terms of money.
So again, I'm going to preempt that because we don't know the answer.
Do New Jersey Transit get some of the money back from each of the units, or do they just?
And nobody here knows the answer to that.
You have no
And
idea. We've never dealt with.
Because no one's at, because no one's at that, again, this is just a plan.
If you're
No, but
a huge development lies, so many more of these have happened in loads of towns all over New Jersey. How can nobody know who is actually going to benefit financially from it? How can you not know? Even have a vague idea? I mean, seriously.
Because the town, I know you don't want to hear the answer, but the town's not involved in that. The town's not the property owner. The town isn't making money off of this. So I know people don't want that answer.
If it was making money off it, I would say, that's great, fantastic. Maybe you can bring our taxes down. Maybe it's a great way of actually earning revenue.
So the town doesn't own
You need a revenue.
right, and the town doesn't own the property.
I mean, but Susan, do you have an idea, just a general idea? Is it just, is the question, how is the deal structured between the developer and New Jersey Transit?
By every town, every case is
Of course.
different. It's gonna be dependent on whatever development agreement you all would, well, not you, but the borough council would come up with the developer, whatever agreement is happening between the developer and New Jersey Transit.
Right, well, is that made transparent to us? The deal that the,
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I doubt that well, to the extent that New Jersey Transit is a public entity, I imagine you could probably Oprah an agreement between New Jersey Transit and the developer to that extent. If New Jersey Transit wasn't a public entity and it was just a private developer dealing with a private developer, then no, it wouldn't, there'd be no insight into it. But Red Bank doesn't play a role into that calculation because it's New Jersey Transit and the developer. All we do as the town is set what the zone plan is. And then they work within that scope.
And it doesn't mean we can't ask the developer and New Jersey Transit when they're here.
But I know there are grants that, I believe there are grants which are what better given out by the state based on the fact that it's a transit village. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, it's probably a few $100,000 per year or whatever, and if you're a designated.
Which we are not a transit village yet.
Yeah, well, exactly, but, and again, that was one of the other questions going on now. Was whether that was a deciding factor on whether or not the town or the board would decide that it's a great idea because they're going to get some funding from the state. I don't know.
It's certainly not of any consideration of this board, because we don't know anything about that. The 80 affordable units are important to us.
No, absolutely.
We like the idea of having 80 affordable units for people to
and
live.
by the way, that's 80 minimum.
Yeah, that's true. At this point, it's 80 minimum. It could be more.
Are they rent controlled in terms of how much they're allowed to?
Excuse me, I have a follow-up. I want to have a discussion. It's to some of your points.
Yeah.
Our job here, right, is the plan is a zoning device. Right?
Well, this is about recommending or not to the mayor and council
That it's consistent with.
that it's consistent with the master plan, and then they get to decide whether or not it is, and we'll vote on that.
So let me just clarify that, just so everyone is 100%.
Such a great lawyer word.
Because I want to make sure everybody understands. This is the planning board's plan. This is not to determine whether it's consistent with the master plan. The planning board, of course, wants to devise a plan that is consistent with the master plan, but this isn't a consistency review, which is what we did which was what we've done previously in other types of meetings. You're actually making up this plan from scratch. So you can do whatever you want within this plan. You want it to be consistent with the master plan. I mean, you theoretically, and you could make it so that the only thing that's permitted in this is single family homes, if you wanted to, if that's what the planning board felt was appropriate. So there's no gun at your head saying you have to do it one way or the other way. So I just want everyone to understand that about what's actually here.
But by creating the plan,
Yes,
we have a mechanism by which to impact what's being presented to us in far greater detail and more coherent detail than we would just relying on the standard zoning
correct.
mechanisms.
So when Mr. Anderson stands up and says he wants he wants you to look at those type of definitions and those type of restrictions, he's absolutely right. You could do that. I'm not saying whether you should or shouldn't, that's a decision for the board, but you could. There's no one who can tell you what, and I think that's what Susan said earlier, there's no one out there that can tell you. New Jersey Transit can't tell you, this is the plan you have to do.
But the other challenge we have in doing this, and this is kind of where it's complicated and why we have to wait on the site plan, is we don't know what the economics will bear in the fulfillment of the plan. Right? So we have to shoot for a framework that lacks a certain amount of specificity that some people may want, because without the representations of the developer and our ability to analyze the finances of it. We don't know what is feasible. We don't know if 50 three-story row houses are feasible versus, I guess they aren't, versus, you know, a 4-story building or a 5-story building. I mean, is that, you know?
That's pretty much
That's
right on. I
pretty
mean,
much where
I'm
we are,
sitting here
right?
wondering if the market can actually absorb 320 if there's 480 are affordable and there's 320 left. I wonder if the market can absorb 320 rental units at the price I'm guessing the developer's gonna want, because not they, the developer, but the market has covered that everywhere else in town so far. But there's buildings that are going up now, and this could happen at 320 units. I don't think they're all gonna rent for the same amount of money. I don't see, you know, people ask me all the time, who the hell is paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month to rent in Red Bank? And there are people who've sold their houses on the peninsula, but want to stay nearby for a year or two. Perhaps they have kids in college and move to Red Bank because they can afford $4,000 a month. I don't think there's 320 of those out there, but that's just my opinion.
What tools will we have when and if we get to a point where the developer submits a site plan in the context of this? What tools do we have will we have to analyze the economic feasibility and representations of the development?
Economic feasibility, no, you don't have any, because economic feasibility never falls into a zoning application.
No, I mean in the sense of if the developer represents that he requires 5 stories to make it happen or 4 stories, what tools do we have to assess that representation?
So it's going to be like any application you've ever received ever in this board. There's nothing special about it. It's going to be a normal application when the developer comes in. You're setting, so for instance, the town right now has height limitations that are in the zoning ordinance. When they come in here, if they exceed the height ordinance, they need a variance. And then you've done plenty of those applications. Here you're setting what the height is, you're setting all these parameters, you're creating the zone code. You're saying that you want, how many stories are we talking?
6, 5.
Right, so 6 and 5, that's what you're saying. So if the applicant comes in with 5 stories or 6 stories, you can't tell them no if the town has adopted a plan that says you can build 6 stories here. You can't say no, make it 5, because you've said that they're allowed to have 6. And I think that's what some of the public is saying. They think it's too tall. Now, whether you do or don't, I mean, that's up to the board. But you are creating the zoning ordinance to determine what is going to be allowed in this place or not. Once that zoning ordinance is in place, the applicant comes in, they present presumably a variance-free application, which is the goal of any redevelopment plans, that the applicant hopefully doesn't have any variances. They come, and if they do, you weigh them the same way you weigh any normal application. But the standards are going to be set by by the council if they adopt the plan that the planning board eventually sends to the council.
Really are absent kind of a quantitative mechanism at this point to determine the economic feasibility of a site plan.
That's not the role.
Yeah, we never do, and it's not our role yet. I've sat here many times and wondered, I'm like, that thing's gonna die. And sometimes they have, and have come back in one way or another. And I will tell you that the developer would love nothing more than 5 or 6 stories.
Yeah, I assure you they would want more.
Anyone else in the public have any questions? Bill, come on up again. You get another 5 minutes.
Just one last thing, sorry, this will be really quick. One of the things I sort of read, and again, maybe this is out of date now, but one of the things that was in the master plan was it talked about the fact that, you know, the type of units that there were in the town. And I'm assuming part of the conversation that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the idea is to try, if possible, to come up with something, some kind of development which is going to be possibly more favourable to young families. Like the young gentleman over there was saying about, what do young families do? I'm assuming that most of these units are going to be relatively, probably going to be 1, 2 or 3 bedroom units, not 4 bedroom units. One of the things that was in the master plan I read was that, most of the stuff that's in town now are 1, 2 or 3 bedroom units, if they're not family homes. The lack of 4 bedroom units is driving young families out of the town. That's a sort of a statistic I sort of read in the master plan. I just wanted to.
That and the price that the market is driving for 4 bedroom units make them impossible.
I'm not on.
The lack of income, it's not the same as what income is made versus younger generation.
I think the last video I saw said that it takes now approximately $20,000 more just in the last year and a half
of salary it would take to buy a house at this market rate, so the market is.
But this isn't going to help any of that. Basically, all of these units are going to be top quality.
I suspect that they would be, but there would be at the minimum of 80 affordable units.
And those affordable units are very prescribed by the state. In order to count as an affordable unit, you have to have a certain mix of 3-bedroom units, which are designed for families, 2 bedrooms, you're capped at your smaller units. It's very specific in terms of the bedroom mix, ADA requirements, for example. So that's really where you can have some control. I mean, no one is building 4-bedroom units at train stations anywhere in Europe. So that's not the market side, but the affordable side, you can have larger units.
No, of course, but I guess the point I'm just making is that this isn't going to solve any of that issue. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me drone on.
Pam, come on, hold on, Bill. We have somebody who hasn't spoken yet.
Oh.
Marjorie Cavalier, Bridge Avenue, Red Bank. My 5 minutes are gonna be a lot shorter than his 5 minutes. So the first thing is a comment. I think you should eliminate the commercial in this development. I think there are plenty of places around the train station that currently exist for grab and go, get coffee, get on the train. I went to both of the feedback sessions. And one of those, the Denholz guy, I think it was the Denholz guy got up and said, they're gonna take a train car and plop it in the middle of that open space and have like a coffee kind of grab place. You don't need that. You don't need that there. There's plenty of places for people to go in that part of Red Bank.
Well, please come back when they have a plan here with that train car and tell them that.
Well, I mean, you may create a zoning ordinance and you could eliminate commercial there. You do have that power, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you could just kind of wipe out that bottom floor, just wipe it out. So my question, the question maybe you know the answer to, they've been building these transit villages up and down between here and Newark. Do you have any idea of what the occupancy rate is for those apartments and what the average rent that they're going for?
Again, that would vary town by town. I'm sure there's a wide range. I don't have numbers on that.
And New Jersey Transit might have that, and if they do, they'd be able to provide that to us at a later meeting if they attend.
Well, it seems to me that that's kind of a question on a lot of people's minds. You know, if they build these, will they come, kind of like Field of Dreams kind of thing? So, it should be out there what these are going for on average. And that seems to be a question that you all could ask. That's it.
Thank you.
Less than, there's 4 minutes left over or whatever, so.
Well done.
Mr. Boku, welcome back.
Good evening again, Mr. Foku, 90 Back Street, March 2. All right, so Ms. Farati informed us that she did not consult with any agencies of sorts in her preparation And I just want to confirm that, would that mean that it did not include Fair Share Housing Corporation? Where did you engage Kevin Walsh or Adam Gordon of, Fair Share Housing Corporation?
No, I mean, you typically wouldn't for any kind of a redevelopment plan like this. I'm sure that they'll be engaged in the borough's affordable housing plan that is probably underway. But they wouldn't typically be engaged at this planning stage of a redevelopment.
I'm asking in terms of, kind of refining your plans and what you were presenting in that frame of mind.
I mean, I will say that 20%, I'm sorry to cut you off, 20% affordable set aside is very typical of what Fair Share is looking for affordable housing throughout communities of the state. So that's a very standard metric.
And do you agree that that 20% is basically low and moderate income?
No, I should have mentioned in addition to bedroom mix, so one of the other ways that the state prescribes the affordable housing regulations is they have specific standards for very low income, and moderate income levels. So you have very specific percentages of each of those units have to hit those income categories. So it's not all, like for example, 80% should be the moderate level. It goes down to like 30% is the very low. So some of those units will be affordable to people making 30% of the area median income. And that's a state requirement for affordable units.
So then, in your presentation, I went through it several times and I did not see any indication at all anywhere of very low income, which is basically one of the problems that Red Bank faces, and Miss Mary Ellen Mess can probably speak more to it. You have Bon Jovi and Lunch Break and the Parker Clinic catering to a lot of people that come to Red Bank because we've set up an environment that is really compassionate to these people, and it could happen to any one of us. One paycheck on some of the folks that go paycheck to paycheck, and you be living in your car. So I want to kind of comment a little bit on the speaker that just came before me in terms of I think scrapping the commercial requirement. And basically, if you go to section 490-154 of the E code, you find out that section 5 of that says to preserve established residential neighborhoods in and adjacent to the station. That is a requirement in our E code 360. And I am kind of wondering whether that's reflected in what is being presented when we have these high-storied buildings and all that high density. Can you speak to that?
I don't have the code in front of me.
What's the section?
154.
490.154, section 5. To preserve established residential neighborhoods in and adjacent to the station.
Overlay, yeah, so that's the standard in the existing train station district, which if this redevelopment plan were enacted, basically supersedes that.
It'll be, the plan is to overall repeal the overlay district if this plan is approved, because there would be no need for the overlay.
This is not the overlay, this is just a train.
The trains, yes, the overlay district. The train station
This is not
district,
the AH1.
no, this train station district is an overlay district. There's the affordable housing overlay district, and then there's the train station overlay district. There's two overlays that the borough has.
Okay, and this plan will supersede that.
Yes, that would be superseded, and then we would repeal the train station overlay district.
And there will be no need to preserve that residential neighborhood.
That's kind of incorporated
That's
in
the
this,
master plan as well.
yes, and it's in the master plan.
And that's problematic, basically. So this is section 2 of my presentation, and after everybody else has spoken, I have one last question to ask.
Anyone else in the public have any comments or questions? Mary Ellen Camargo? And as much as River Center would like everyone who lives here to go to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee, I don't personally see that as practical for 400 units to have to leave the neighborhood to do everything. And there are places to get coffee, you're right. Bagel Station's been there for as long as I can remember.
I'll just add then that I don't think anyone's taking the business away from international market on the tacos. I think the west side of Red Bank is gonna thrive with all the new customers. There's a great thriving business area in that area. And it's a real joy to see how many customers keep those businesses afloat and how much they come in. So I think new customers are gonna be great for that area. I don't think that the markets compete, they're different.
The other thing as well is we're not just talking about coffee shops, we're talking about potential banks, nurseries, daycares, performing arts spaces. There's a whole host of other commercial uses that could take place in that ground floor.
Go ahead, Mary Ellen.
I agree with Ms. Hernandez that the Shrewsbury Avenue commercial district is probably more vibrant than Broad Street at this point, with the diversity of businesses there. So I kind of disagree with an earlier comment that that area needs to revitalization, because I think it's very vibrant right now. I think when we talk about luxury housing and affordable housing, and I know Susan referenced the income limits that allow people to qualify for the deed restricted affordable units and how much rent they have to pay. But really, we have a glut of luxury units in town. What we don't have is that middle ground. And for, those of us who have adult children, we're very well aware of the problematic nature of the high rents, because our own children are being priced out of town because they wouldn't qualify. If they're young professionals, they don't meet the income limits for the affordable units, but they can't afford the luxury units that people who are empty nesters, who have equity in a home that they're selling, they have a defined benefit pension, Social Security, and a 401k, they don't think twice about maybe dumping $4,000 a month into rent. So, and I do think the current train overlay district zoning meets the requirements for a transit village. We really don't have to change the zoning. And I'm really confused about this process, because on the one hand, you say, oh, these things aren't going to be built because we don't have a plan, but by endorsing this plan, accepting this plan, sending it on to the council, we're basically saying we support these zoning changes that will allow the developer to build a 6-story building. And to say that he hasn't presented a site plan, he already presented a plan. Now, yes, the BFJ plan may require him to change some of the facades, to set back the stories, the upper stories from the street level facades. But we're basically, if you approve this plan, you're opening the floodgates to a 6-story building. And as our attorney said, once that happens, you can't tell the developer no. So what I'm asking you to do is to make some amendments, then make him go for a variance. Make him go for a variance. Why are we opening the floodgates here? This process is so convoluted, as is the whole affordable housing policy, the way people qualify for it, the way they find it, the application process is a nightmare. The whole thing is just terrible, and it's so disappointing that once again, Red Bank gets led down this path. There are a whole bunch of people running around this town saying, what the heck is going on Hudson Avenue? Who approved that? Who approved that nightmare on the corner of Maple and Front Street? What are people thinking when they built this stuff on Monmouth Street? We wind up with these things that are poorly designed, poorly constructed. And you know, we look at all this stuff and say, oh, it's luxury apartments and everything's great and they have granite countertops. What is this stuff gonna look like in 20 years as ownership changes? I mean, maybe people who can afford $4,000, apartments aren't careless. We have a volunteer fire department, folks, and the firemen sometimes, they complain because the trucks can't navigate some of these entryways to get into these buildings so they can actually fight fires. And it happened across the street from my house last week. There was something going on across the street in the parking lot behind the Verizon building, and the truck could not get in the driveway. And it took them about 15 minutes to get the truck in the driveway. Thankfully, it was a false alarm. But, I mean, these are things that we have to think about.
So if I can just comment on that, the good thing about this is that we're not talking about, this isn't the site plan. And the things that you're talking about with the fire truck is exactly why they still have to come back for a site plan. Because they wouldn't be able to build what they want to build if the fire department says, hey, we can't get in, that the buildings are too close, we can't get through the alleyway or whatever it is. That they won't be able to do that because they won't meet the fire code.
Yes.
And this ordinance has nothing to do with it. I'm not negating anything you just said. What I am saying, though, is that your issue about the fire department isn't part of this because the site plan will still have to come before this board. And all those issues get to be raised then. And the fire department, the fire code says that it needs to be a certain width or the fire truck can't get in. The height.
Height's the biggest issue.
Yeah, and all that stuff. That's gonna be heard in the
Height
site
of a
plan.
driveway.
And I have, and I'm sure Susan can say the same thing, I've been a part of many, many redevelopment plans over the years in this job, and as Susan probably is. I have seen changes made at site plan phase because the applicant comes in and they say, well, listen, we have no variances whatsoever. They still have to change things because of the site plan phase of it, for the exact reason you're talking about.
This whole process, it just seems to me that it's backwards. And on the one hand, you're saying, well, this isn't really a plan. It is a plan. It is a plan. That's what we're calling it, a plan. And we're going to allow someone to build 6 stories on that location. But at the same time, then we're being said, well, it's not really a site plan yet. It's like,
Well,
Mr.
it is
telling you what they want to do.
It is a plan. So, I mean, it's literally called a plan, but it's not a site plan. There is a difference.
Yes,
All we have seen is renderings at this point. And that's what.
I understand that, but we know what's coming down the pike. And this, if you adopt this, it basically changes the zoning in the train station overlay district to allow bigger, denser buildings. And I really still have a problem, Susan, with calculating density over 11 acres when the buildable area is actually 7.5 acres. So, and I'm not a planner. It's a lot of work for me to look through the master plan, look through the redevelopment plan, try to find out where the consistencies are. And now tonight, I'm told that didn't matter. I did all this work looking through all these plans. And you tell me, oh, well, that's not really what we're doing here. It seems like the purpose of these meetings change every time I come. It's just, the whole process is so convoluted. But what I'm saying, why are we adopting something that says you have permission to build 6 stories, but we're gonna, make you jump through very many hoops in the site planning process, so before we say, yes, you can build it? I mean, that's basically what's going on.
Well, that's true, and that's what state law allows us to do, is create a zone, as we have everywhere in town. In this zone, we're saying a maximum of 6 stories, and the developer would build 10 stories in a minute if we let them.
But we could also say, we want to maintain the density and the height that is already outlined by the train overlay district because we believe that that's adequate. And that will meet the requirements of the application for the transit village, which I understand there are many council members who are very anxious to apply for that designation and get that designation. But you know what that designation gets you? Because I looked, the grants for 2025 were given to 8 transit villages. And they run from maybe $200,000 to $600,000 for sidewalk repairs. So in order to get this transit village designation, it just seems to me that we're giving away a lot by adopting this redevelopment plan for very little in return. Because how many transit villages are there now in New Jersey? 40? Well, only 8 of them got grants, and it's just for sidewalk repair. So it's not like we're gonna be designated a transit village and everybody's gonna be walking everywhere and taking mass transit and nobody's gonna need a car. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And I asked the question, how many people here have hopped on a bus to take care of any of their personal business? My guess is very, very few of us. So
A lot of people do on
that's
the
all I
west
have
side
to
though.
say. I mean, I know people take transit to New York. I'm not talking about commuting to New York. I'm talking about going to the grocery store, going to the beach, going to a concert. It just doesn't happen here.
I think it does, actually. I would push back against that. People on the west side have lived for a long time without access to transportation. I'm excited to see that we're actually invested in public transportation at all. You know, for a long time, there used to be no bus from Red Bank to Brookdale, and then there was, and it increased the amount of students we were able to put in college. So to me, this is, I think it's a different perspective. I hear 80 affordable housing units at a minimum. I hear 400 new people that come to see our town, and I would disagree, because I just have to put it on the record. I would disagree that having lunch break here makes it so that we become a homeless capital. I sit in a couple of committees that address homelessness, and one of the issues that we have is that other towns don't want to step up. So it's not that Red Bank is trying to attract them, it's that the towns around us don't want to meet their legal requirement to have a code blue system. And I think if you are engaged, and I'm so glad to see so many residents engaged, it's okay for us to have that conversation with the neighboring towns as to why they're not stepping up and they're just sending over folks in their communities that are struggling to us instead of just meeting the law.
Well, and I agree with you, Itzel, that, and I do not begrudge the people the services that they get here. But it is a regional issue, it's a statewide issue, it's actually a national issue. And it's not a Red Bank problem. It's not, these people are not homegrown here. It is a magnet. It was unintended when the expansion for lunch break happened. But you're absolutely correct. The surrounding towns don't take any responsibility for providing services for these people or even contributing to what the costs are. And I wish we had, but, you know, doing these Band-Aids, giving people a meal or a bed when the temperature drops below 32 degrees, that's keeping them alive, but it's not really helping them, you know, find a stable living environment. And much has been made about the social workers that we have employed in town.
And they do a wonderful job.
I have spoken to the social workers and they say, I don't have any place to refer these people to. There's no housing available. Even HabCorp is overwhelmed. So when I say that we've become a magnet, I want people to understand the services are great, but we need help and we need more than just Band-Aids. We need places that these people can live. And the 80 units are not gonna solve the problem.
Nor zero, they're just gonna make it worse.
Well, you know, I just think the entire policy is flawed and that it really needs to be revised. That's my point here. Thank you.
And just one comment, the train station overlay allows 50 feet or 5 stories already.
So why change it?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
One comment about the height. I mean, we talk about height and you talk, you know, as if it's the most horrible thing in the world. The fact is, a developer wants to put a certain number of units. If it doesn't go high, it's going to spread out. That's why we got something like Station Place where there's no setback. If you could negotiate with the developer to give them a little height for a little more setback, maybe a piazza in there, something that looks better rather than a wall straight against the street. That's why in the past, people would talk about, oh, the boxes, they're all boxy and they look horrible. That's why, because they are restricted on how high they can go. Now, you know, for one more story above what it is now, I don't think that's a disaster. In fact, I think it may help things so we could get more setback, we could get more open space on the property and make it look better. And you kind of have these things that, this intimation that whatever you're against is bad. Much of the things that you're against is not bad. It's good. And so it's just a matter of subjectivity. And, you know, at a certain point, we have to make a decision that's best for the town. And to leave that as empty parking lots, it's been like that for decades. And it's really awful. It's a waste of space. It's ugly, and we need to improve things. And to say that, okay, oh, you're only providing 80 spaces, and therefore we're not going to solve all the housing, all the homeless problems in the city or in the state. We're doing what we could, you know. It's a big problem. It's a humongous problem. We're trying to do the best we could with what our options are. And to be a naysayer all the time, and you don't want nothing, get rid of all commercial, get rid of it completely. Oh, it's stupid, let's leave it like that for the next infinity. It's so negative. You know, we have to listen to that over and over and over again. And we have to make a decision for the best of the town.
Put your hand up first, sir. Come on up. And I will say, Lou looked over at me when he said height, because I am the height monster around here. I don't like tall buildings. Having lived in Riverview Towers, though, I did enjoy the view as the tallest building in town. And when built was the tallest building in Monmouth County before the Channel Club went up. I think about opportunities like this that are lifetime opportunities, because this development will outlive all of us and will be here for probably 100 years. And the reason I like to have these public hearings is because I think it's a big deal. And I want to hear what everyone, including people on the board, have to say about things like height. And it's crucial. Sir, can we have your name and address, please?
Yes, Lou Alberini. I live on 91 Harrison Avenue, Red Bank. And I'm just reacting to something that the other Lou in the room said. That this is just one story more than we have now. I just want to raise everyone's consciousness to the neighborhood. And the fact is, we don't have 5-story buildings in that neighborhood right now. If you look at some quite beautiful or historic structures that are in the building, you look across the street of the Anderson building, 3 stories. You look to the Eisner buildings, nearly 100 years old, originally factories building clothing for World War I and World War II, 3 stories. Beautiful buildings. So, like most things in life, I think the right answer is moderation. You're right. Anything is, a parking lot is ugly and it's not the highest and best use of that space. 100% agree with that. I just question why we need to change the ordinance to go from, already we are allowing a height that is greater than the neighboring buildings. We're allowing 5. Why is there a need to go to 6? I just don't see that.
Thank you, Lou. And there is a 5-story building there already. The old Red Bank Register building, which is next to the Papal Station, which is now Lowe's. There are 3 to probably 5. I was in the top one. It also is a
How old?
rooftop.
How old is that building?
Brand new. They just renovated it. No, how old is the building itself? The building's ancient. It was the old Red Bank Register building. It just turned residential in the last couple of years.
And okay.
It's 5 stories. I don't know how tall it is, but it's
Yeah,
5
it
stories.
certainly isn't.
And they're lofts. They've got very tall ceilings inside. All the mechanicals are visible inside. I was on the, and it's got a rooftop, which is pretty cool if you have the rooftop, the top unit.
And it is possible to do things with structures that are 3 stories to add to them in a way that doesn't necessarily destroy the view from their best side. I mean, the Anderson building, when you go to the back of it, what was added on, I don't necessarily agree with the architecture of it, but it does go above the original height of 3 stories. But again, you know, I'm talking about when you stand in the parking lot, okay, when you get off the train, your view of the other buildings should not be blocked by a tower that looks like it belongs in Elizabeth.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bill, yes, Alan, come on up.
I have to take up this thing again whereby, and particularly in Mr. Demento's case, just because we do not accept this plan, doesn't mean we are just don't want anything. I said in my last contribution that, you know, there are plenty of other ideas out there. There are plenty, so don't block people or just accuse people of being naysayers. Do not do that, because, as I said, there's a lot of ideas out here. You just haven't managed to find them or given people the forum to do it. Mr. Beebe was went on about how you know this is just going to go forward and this will just be a basis for the plans. Of course, it's a kind of invitation to developers, and what we're doing here and what you're doing is possibly passing a great big beautiful invitation with a big bow on it to developers to do what they will.
So keep in mind, New Jersey Transit already picked their developer. We're not going to hear from anyone else.
That's right. So what I'm saying is, whatever you put through, that builder or whoever will use that as a minimum. They will use that as a minimum because we know that's what they do. They don't think, oh, you know, I'll trade off an extra story. I'll put 15 feet of frontage on with little bushes. They don't do that. They don't do that. They just maximize their opportunity on it. So I'm just saying, restrict that invitation, make it much more conforming to what the community wants. And, you know, I don't have to tell you, you've just got to look on social media, and I haven't really got much time for social media, believe it or not.
No one agrees with you on that comment.
Okay, well, fine.
Considering how many of your comments I read on social media, I find it very hard to believe that you don't have time for it.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. You're the first person who ever face to face told me they read my book. So thank you very much. But what I'm saying is, if you look at the overwhelming responses, rightly or wrongly, I don't agree with all of them. Actually, I don't agree with Mary Beth about the buses and transit. I do not agree with that. But you know, we're not a monoblock.
Alan, I've never read that you agreed with anyone ever online. I've never read any of your comments that agreed with anyone.
So once again, is this me making a comment or are you giving a judgment on me? Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Yeah, this is your last 5 minutes.
Yes, I promise it is the last. This question is also addressed to Mayor Portman. If he's able to respond to that, Are you aware that this year is the end of the repos for protection against builder's remedy?
Could you just repeat that one more time?
Are you aware that this year, 2025, is the last year for repos on protection against builder's remedy?
No, I was not aware.
So it's not right?
I was not aware.
Okay, all right, so the borrower is protected from builders just bypassing planning and zoning to build. After this period,
It's only when we choose not to act.
excuse me?
For a builder to get builder's remedy, we have to not act as a town and a board,
Correct.
which we've never done and would never let something be built because we chose not to act.
That you are also aware that there's something also called a scarce resource restraint.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, the scarce resource restraint basically says that if you are not able to meet your obligation for affordable housing, realistic obligation, then the resources that are available for creating that affordable housing has to be managed by some other entity other than the town. So that is something that can happen. Okay, so basically, I'm speaking from the point of view of the NAACP because NAACP invented Mount Laurel. I don't know whether Susan, you are aware of that. That was a case that was brought by NAACP that initiated the whole doctrine of Mount Laurel. I'm here representing that organization. And so far, this town has opted not to engage with the NAACP in terms of maybe discussing things that have been brought up by so many other people. Okay, so what I gather from this when I make my report is that there are misgivings about the plan as it stands right now.
You mean Mount Laurel?
Excuse me?
You mean Mount Laurel?
Yeah, right. That we as a town have not completely met our obligations. And we are using up the resources. Now, from NAACP point of view, if you told me you were going to build another cedar crossing with 400 units and 20% set aside for luxury, I'll be fine. I didn't even ask you to go higher than that, build.
Find us a builder to do that. We're on board.
All right, so the question is, not being able to find a builder to do that does not obviate your obligation to comply with the doctrine.
We agree with you.
Thank you.
Can I respond, Chairman?
Sure.
Maybe I'll let Sean.
No, you can go
as well. Mr. Coker is correct that the third round of the affordable housing required under Mount Laurel is ending this summer. And the fourth round will be starting. The borough is undertaking an affordable housing plan. I understand, right, Shauna?
Yeah.
As is every town in the state, by June 30th is the deadline. So that will be the next 10 years, basically. So it's context for this application or this plan, it's not directly relevant. The 80 units, if that's approved, would then go forward for the next round, the fourth round. And I think would largely satisfy your obligation, but I don't have all the numbers.
But it's likely that once, if we approve this plan, we would satisfy that, which has been dragging for a while.
But the borough has always affirmatively achieved its obligation on affordable housing. It's adopted all the required plans every round, and will do so in the next round as well.
Thank you for that.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? So if it makes you all feel better, this is not a slam dunk thing that we've decided already to do. And I will give you all a little bit of credit, except Mr. Hill, because you've cast enough doubt in my mind that I want to think about this some more. So I would like a motion from someone on the board to carry this meeting until April 23rd. At which time I believe we would make a decision one way or another on the redevelopment plan.
I will, I'll move that.
Thank you, Mr. Beebe. Do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Mayor will second the plan.
All in favor?
Do a roll call.
Mayor Portman,
Yes.
Christina Bonatakis,
Yes.
Dan Mancuso.
Yes.
Lou Demento.
I just have a question. With the plan, when we vote on it, could we make recommendations to change it?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
I had some I was ready to talk about tonight, but I couldn't wait till April 23rd. That's your.
I don't want to wait till, the reason I want to carry this to April 23rd is because I want to think about some changes to it.
yeah, I mean, so the board, again, I can't be more clear on this. The board can make any changes they want to make to the plan. It's your plan. Yeah, it is. It's your plan. Susan drafted it, but it's ultimately your plan. Susan can't tell you, this is my plan. I'm going to, you have to do this. Right, exactly. So this is your plan. You can change it, you can reject it, you can do anything you want with it. It's your plan, and the majority of board members are going to decide what goes into that plan. And you've all been around I know you've been on this board a long time. And I know there was commentary earlier from the public that it's already been decided, and as Dan keeps saying, it's not. And also, this board is not, a lot of times doesn't vote unanimously. So nothing's set in stone, anything can happen.
Wilson Bibi,
Yes.
Itzel Hernandez.
Yes.
Fred Stone,
Yes.
Brian Parnigan.
Yes.
So ladies and gentlemen, my usual speech about this is your notice that we are carrying this to the April 23rd meeting. There will be no further notice to the public in the newspaper, online. Well, anyone can write whatever they want online. But this is the notice to the public about this being carried to April 23rd.
You want to do anything else scheduled for April 23rd?
No, that's it. That's
Okay.
scheduled.
And that sounds like that's all that we'll be doing on April 23rd.
Yes. Also, just one thing, Dan, I'm sorry.
Shoot.
As you all know, we are working on the housing element, that needs to be adopted by June. The end of June. I need 2 members of the, board to, sit on our committee.
Who wants to do that?
It's on the housing element, not the affordable, it's the whole entire housing element of the master plan. Okay,
When is it, Shawna?
well, no.
Whenever
this is
you,
on the
whenever the
committee.
members on.
Yeah, we can meet to discuss it, to review the plan before it's presented to the board.
I would sit on that.
All right, everyone, the board's still in session, so if you can please take conversations outside.
I'll do.
Any day you show up.
Can you,
Yeah, and
Dan, can you buzz, because we're not listening, I mean.
Folks, if you can please keep it down, we're still transacting business up here, please. Thank you.
okay, so, Itzel and Brian, you'd want to sit on the, housing element committee? Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
You'll get an email from me because we do need to meet with the planner too.
Motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Throwing away my tickets for tonight.